Today on Know the Truth, Pastor Philip De Courcy shares a message from Revelation chapter 21.
That's what we read here, don't we, in verse 6. It's done. He's going to do it, and we're going to be the beneficiaries of it. All that's good in life is not a movement from the ground up. It's a movement from heaven down.
One of heaven's greatest blessings will be what will no longer exist. Welcome to Know the Truth, where today, Pastor Philip De Courcy reveals God's glorious promise of removing everything that brings us pain. We'll learn why heaven isn't just about adding good things, but eliminating bad ones, and how this eternal hope can transform our perspective on life's present struggles. If you missed the first few segments of this lesson, you can access them and the complete series online at ktt.org. Here's Pastor Philip with All Things Made New.
Now, we all like happy endings. We want to believe that there's a happy ever after. We want to believe that darkness gives way to light and death gives way to life and sorrow gives way to happiness. We want to believe that there's a better tomorrow, given how sad and sorry today can be. And the beauty is, as we come to Revelation 21, verses 1 to 8 for the second time, we're at a place in the Bible where we are faced with and we encounter a happy ending, the best of happy endings, the greatest of, and they lived happily ever after. It's the new heaven and it's the new earth. Now let's put our text quickly in its context. As we said the last time, we have the culmination of God's plan here in Revelation 21:22, a plan that he outlined as early as Genesis 3:15, from the very beginning of time. Man sinned, death entered, God cursed the ground upon which man would toil. Sin and sadness and sickness entered the world, but God promised through the seed of the woman, his coming son, Jesus Christ, that would all be reversed. And here we are in Revelation 21:22 verse 3, and here's what we read: there shall be no more curse. What God promised, he did. And secondly, where we're at in this text is the culmination of God's plan for the last days. If you look at verse 5, it says, behold, I make all things new. So let's jump in. I outlined this passage under four thoughts: the renewal, the residence, the removal, the redeemed. We looked at the renewal of this present world. A new heaven and a new earth will emerge. So let's pick up the second thought, the residence. This would be verses 2 and 3. Then I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. The new creation will have a capital city. See, in this present dispensation, on this present earth, we would argue that the old Jerusalem was the center of the old creation. Psalm 48 verses 1 to 2, Ezekiel 38 verse 12. But in the new world, in the new creation, God will have a capital city, and it will be a holy city, a distinct city, one marked by the righteousness and radiance of God himself, and it will be the capital city of the new order. It will be a new Jerusalem. It will be the antithesis of Babylon, a city that God destroyed back in Revelation 17 and 18. This city will be God's metropolis for eternity. Now, there's several things about this city. Number one, what I call the place. It's a literal place. It's a city on a new earth and a new heaven. It may be on the earth or it may be just above the earth. I would lean to the idea that it's on the earth. It's a holy city, New Jerusalem, that comes down out of heaven from God. It coming down from heaven would imply, or would seem to infer, that it's already in existence. It's there, we don't see it, but it comes down and we begin to see it. I, John, saw the new heaven and the new earth and the new Jerusalem. Here's what I would argue, and I think many commentators along with me: what it is probably the Father's house. right? John 14, 1-6, Jesus says, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go away, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. In my Father's house are many mansions. And I think that city, which is a cube shape, almost like a holy of holies, will come down out of heaven. I love that. The place, the picture. The only description we're given here is that this city is like a bride prepared and adorned for her husband. 21 verse 2. Now you can overread this text. I don't think we need to. Some people read into a hidden reference or symbolism of the church. And there's some merit to that, isn't there? Ephesians 5, where the church is the bride of Christ. But I don't think there's any need for that. When the plain sense of a text makes good sense, seek no other sense. And I think he's simply saying that this place is a beautiful place. It's a stunning place. It's radiant. Because isn't that what we think when we think of a bride adorned for her husband? I think it's just saying that this place is beautiful. Thirdly, you have the presence. We're dealing with the residence. God's taken up residence on earth. The new Jerusalem comes down, and chief among the populace of the world to come is God himself. Look at verse 3. And behold, the tabernacle of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them. It's amazing. God himself will be with them and be their God. God no longer dwells high and lifted above us, but gloriously, intimately, and permanently among us. That's what heaven is. God is with man. Is there anything better than that? God is with man. And all the attendant graces that comes with God's presence is ours, but it's about God. It's not about what he gives. It's about the giver. God is relational. And in Jesus Christ, he has sought to reconcile us to himself. And we're going to enjoy the fullness of that in God's presence. I love what Vance Havner says. The New Testament writers did not speak of going to heaven so much as going to be with the Lord. It's not the other shore that charms us, but the one who stands on it. Love that. If you read the New Testament, they don't often talk about, you know what, we're going to heaven, or I'm going to heaven. They'll describe it as we're going to be with the Lord, because that's heaven. 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 7, at the end of the rapture, what does it say? And so shall we be with the Lord forever. That's what we long for. That's what we want. When I was at Shepherd's Conference this year, I was going through the book tent, no surprise. And I went over to one of the book-stalls done by Christian Focus, which is a small but a very good publisher out of Scotland. I published a book with them, Emergency Rations. And this year, the owner of the company, Willie Mackenzie, was in from Scotland. Wonderful man of God. I'd heard about him. He's a close friend of Alistair Begg. And I'd always wanted to meet him. And there he was. And we ended up talking for 60 minutes. About the old country and what was going on in Britain, mutual friends. And I ended up at some point talking about Eric Alexander, who was a Scottish Presbyterian in Glasgow where my wife grew up. He pastored the Tron alongside Sinclair Ferguson. And when June and I had an evening off on a Sunday night, she went to a particular church in Scotland beyond this one, we would duck into the Tron and enjoy Eric Alexander or Sinclair Ferguson. And the preaching was just fantastic, top drawer, 5-star. And we benefited from that spiritually. And so we were talking about Eric Alexander and his life and his ministry. He's now with the Lord as is his wife. In fact, as we were talking, he was there when Eric Alexander buried his wife and gave the eulogy. And here's what Willie Mackenzie said about that service. Quote, Eric Alexander stood up and said this, when I met her, she was in Christ. Throughout our marriage, I could see Christ was in her and she was for Christ. And now in her death, I rejoice she's with Christ. Love it. I wrote it down as soon as I went home. It's a beautiful statement. My wife, when I first met her, she was in Christ. She was a Christian woman. And across our marriage, I saw she was for him, and I benefited from that. But I want to tell you now, as much as I love being with her, I'm so glad she's with Christ, for now she's with the one who died for her and the one for whom she lived. That's heaven, with Christ, with the Lord. Finally, on this thought, we'll need to speed up here, what I call the peoples, right? The peoples. We've looked at this residence, the place, the picture, the presence. I want you to notice the peoples. Now, I'm using that term in the plural for a reason. Because if you look at Revelation 21, verse 3, in my version, it says, and they shall be his people. But there are several versions, and you might have one that reads that, and they shall be his peoples. There are several manuscripts that put this in the plural. And you know what? There's reason to believe that well may be the case for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you go back to Genesis 12:3, where God promises to do certain things for Abraham and his seed, he says, those who curse you, I will curse. Those who bless you, I will bless. And you will be a blessing to the families of the earth. And you know what? If you go to Revelation 21, where we are at, and verse 24, and the nations, plural, of those who are saved shall walk in the light, and the kings, plural, who are over peoples of the earth shall bring their glory and honor into it. Again, it's interesting, chapter 22 at the end of verse 2, the leaves of the tree of life will be for the healing of the nations. Nations, kings, peoples. I find that fascinating. I'm not going to get into the depths of it. I'm not going to build a strong theology out of it, but it would seem to infer that this holy city, this new Jerusalem on a new earth, is made up of multi-ethnic and multiracial people from every tribe, tongue, and nation. Isn't that what they're celebrating in Revelation 5, 6, and 7? 5, 9, and 7, 9. You redeemed us out of every tribe and tongue and nations. It's interesting. Psalm 9, verse 17 talks about the nations who forgot God are cast into hell. And if that's true, isn't the converse true? And the nations that loved God and the peoples within those nations that loved God, they go to heaven. It was seen to me, I'll make an argument for it, but I won't fight you over it, unless you push too hard, that when we are in the new earth, in a new body, we're going to retain our physical features. We dealt with that. Jesus retained his physical features. When he was raised, his disciples recognized him. And could it be that we retain our ethnic identities, our nationalities? If you die an American, you're going to heaven an American. If you die British, you're going to heaven British. If you die European or Asian or African, you're going there. Now, of course, all the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdom of our one God and Savior. But God's image is reflected in our looks and our ethnicities. And it could well be the case. And I find that fascinating. What's America's motto? Out of the many, one. That could well be said of the new heaven and the new earth and the new Jerusalem, out of the many, one. Now, we'll retain our physical features and our ethnic identities, but there'll be no competition. There'll be no conflict, because we're all under King Jesus. We're all waving his flag. But the redemptive power of God and the glory of God's plan will be reflected in all of those faces of colors and backgrounds, and the marvel of God's redemptive purpose. Let's have a little bit of fun here for a moment, and then we'll get back to a couple of closing thoughts. I came across this years ago. Someone said this: heaven is where the police are British, the cooks are French, the mechanics are German, the lovers are Italian, and all is organized by the Swiss. Hell is where the chefs are British, the mechanics are French, the lovers are Swiss, the police are German, and it's all organized by the Italians. That's funny. I got a fly up here I want to kill. But all joking aside, there's going to be something fun, fascinating, intriguing, if this thesis is right, that kings of the earth and nations will come up and bring all of their adoration and affection to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Thirdly, the removal. Not going to spend a ton of time on this. In fact, I did a sermon on this in our series on heaven, Life After Life. Go listen to it again. Good riddance. Because one of the beautiful things about heaven, one of the beautiful things about the life to come is not only what's going to be there, but what's not going to be there. Look at verses 4 and 5 of our passage. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no sorrow, no crying. There'll be no pain, for the former things will pass away. Wow. The old order. Death. Have you buried anybody? Disease. Have you been sick? Are you sick? Are you nursing someone that's sick? Disappointment. Have you ever been let down or let yourself down or life? You thought, you'd got the ticket to happiness only to arrive and you're still empty. All of that's gone. The things that rob us of a full and a fulfilled life will be gone. It's a new heaven and a new earth in quality and character and arrangement. And what John does here to help us get our hands and our heads and our hearts around this new earth is he compares what you have gone through in this life to what you will never face again in the next. That helps us. See, it's hard for us to imagine that which we haven't experienced. And so I'm not surprised that John spends a bunch of time in this passage telling you what's not going to be there, because that, by connection, connects us to things we've gone through, which we can remember, we've experienced, we can weigh and understand. And he's saying, look, see all of that gone. And that helps us understand how beautiful the new world will be. He takes us from the known and the negative known to the unknown by helping us see that all of that will be missing. Eye hasn't seen, ear hasn't heard. Now, I'm not going to go down all the list because it's kind of deserves a whole sermon, which I did, by the way. Go to it, good riddance. But there's no sea. Verse 1, no death. Verse 3, no tears. Verse 3, no pain. And then if you go on through the chapter and into the next chapter, no sinners, no sin. Verse 27, no temple. Chapter 22, verse 22 of 21. No night, no darkness. Verse 25 of 21. No gates closed. 21, 25, and no curse. 22, 3. Just taking it surface value. All of that stuff's gone. I like the sound of that. Would you like to see pain go away? You will. Would you like to see your child's suffering come to an end? You will. Would you like to live in a world without crime and famine and human suffering and trafficking and war? You will. Would you like to stop crying over things that break your heart? You will. Would you like to say goodbye for the last time? You will. Would you like to stop struggling in your body regarding holiness? You will. Would you like to feel completely safe? You will. Would you like to experience life with all the positives, with no negatives? You will. That's what's being promised. No pain, no crying, no dying. I love that. As you know, for a time, June and I lived in Ohio, and we suffered its winters, which were brutal. Think twice before you move to Ohio. And north of that, Michigan. That's another story. When we were in Ohio, a church in Michigan invited us to consider a call. We drove up, I won't tell you where, but we drove up to it, and we spent the weekend there, and we were driving back, and I said to June, well, what do you think? And she said, I'm not going any further north. I always remember that. So that determined the will of God for us right there and right then. No further north. So anyway, we're in Ohio. We're, freezing our proverbial you-know-what off. And we always longed to get to California in the winter because we'd lived here and we were in the Midwest enjoying precious people, by the way, in our church. No mistake about that. But we looked ways to get back to California. If I was invited to preach, I didn't even pray about it. It was clearly God's will that I go and preach in that church. And if there was no honorarium, I didn't care. And the reason why? Sunny skies. It's December and January in Toledo, Ohio. It's utter darkness where you're gnashing your teeth. But sunny skies, warm temperatures, golden beaches. Friends, family, Seaport Village in San Diego, La Jolla, In-N-Out Burgers. It's all there. Now, that's the reason, one of the reasons we wanted to come. And the other reason, because that's all present in California. And the other reason is what's absent. Weather in the tens. Gray skies. Long nights. Ice on your windshield, slush on the road. No more in California. And so we weren't only attracted to California by what was present, we were attracted by what was absent. And I think, and both made California the place that we know it to be and love it to be. What's present and what's absent.
You're listening to Know the Truth with Philip De Courcy and a message titled All Things Made New, Part 2. To replay it, visit ktt.org. Today's lesson comes from our series Things to Come, where Pastor Philip reveals God's prophetic timeline and brings clarity to our uncertain future. As more people search for answers about what lies ahead, you can help us share these vital biblical truths. Through your support, we can continue bringing Pastor Philip's clear teaching on end times prophecy to those seeking hope and understanding. Give a gift of any amount today, and you'll not only join us in this mission, but you'll also receive a timely and practical resource recommended by Pastor Philip. It's a book titled Alive, How the Resurrection of Christ Changes Everything, written by Dr. Gabe Fleurer. In this compelling book, Dr. Fleurer examines that Jesus' rise from the grave is no mere myth. It is a historic reality, supported by overwhelming evidence. Through 7 illuminating chapters, he walks readers through the resurrection from its foreshadowing in the Old Testament to its fulfillment in the New Testament, while addressing scholarly objections with biblical truth. As we face a world where faith is often dismissed as a blind belief, this resource provides the evidence and understanding you need to defend the reality of the risen Lord. And you can give and receive a copy of Alive, How the Resurrection of Christ Changes Everything by calling 888-644-8811 or by visiting ktt.org. Now, at Know the Truth, part of our mission is to also equip godly leaders. And Philip, you've got an event coming up soon that aligns with that mission.
Thanks, Wayne. Yes, it's our annual Entrust Men's Leadership Conference. It's coming up on May the 13th. The theme is Pastor to Pastor. And we'll be addressing the unique challenges pastors and God's servants face in ministry today. And we're going to share solutions and insights from years of experience. And we'd love for you to join us in person or online.
Yes, we sure would, and you can learn more about this and register online at entrustconference.org. Thank you, Philip. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Be sure to join us tomorrow when Pastor Philip concludes his powerful message on heaven and eternity titled All Things Made New. Find out what it takes to inherit God's glorious new creation and receive the ultimate happy ending to your story. Friday on Know the Truth. Today's program was produced and sponsored by Know the Truth Incorporated. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."